This content is entirely fictional and does not promote, glorify, or romanticize organized crime, violence, or illegal activity. The story explores the psychological, moral, and social consequences of criminal choices and the price paid for losing one's humanity in pursuit of power. The empty social club smelled like ghosts. Marcus Donovan stood in the darkness at 4:17 in the morning, surrounded by walls that still carried the scent of Cuban cigars and aged whiskey, the phantom residue of power that no longer belonged to him. In his right hand, he held a photograph, the edges worn soft from handling. 22 years ago, Catherine Sterling had become Catherine Donovan in a ceremony that cost more than most people earned in a year. In the photo, she smiled with her eyes, the kind of smile that held secrets he had never bothered to learn. He remembered her last words to him, delivered with the surgical precision of someone who had finally stopped hoping. "You were never the architect, Marcus. You were just another brick." 96 hours earlier, he had been something different. 96 hours earlier, he had believed his own legend. The alarm went off at 5:30, the same as it had every morning for 23 years. Marcus Donovan hit the button with the automatic reflex of a man whose body had been trained by the United States Marine Corps to function before the brain fully engaged. 6 years of service, 2 tours in Afghanistan, and a discharge that came with honor and scars nobody could see. The discipline never left. At 51, his morning run still covered 6 miles through the pre-dawn streets of South Boston, past row houses where families slept and corner stores that would open to sell coffee and lottery tickets to people chasing different kinds of dreams. By 7, he was showered and dressed, standing in the kitchen of a penthouse that overlooked the harbor. Catherine was already gone. A note on the granite counter, her handwriting precise as always. Early errands, back by dinner. The dash and initial, no warmth, no intimacy, just information transfer. He poured coffee from the automatic maker, the machine programmed to brew at 6:45 every morning, another small piece of order in a life built on controlled chaos. Reaper arrived at 7:15 in a black Escalade, the engine idling smooth and quiet. Thomas Riley had earned his nickname in Helmand Province during a night when things went sideways and he kept firing until nothing moved. 20 years later, he still had the same eyes, the kind that had seen things and filed them away in a place where therapists could not reach. They drove through morning traffic without speaking, the silence between them the comfortable kind that came from shared history written in sand and blood. The first meeting took place in a warehouse near the port, where shipping containers stacked like metal building blocks and the smell of salt water mixed with diesel fuel. A shipment had arrived from Santos, Brazil, routed through intermediary ports to obscure its origin. 60 kilograms of cocaine, street value approaching $4 million, wrapped in waterproof packages and hidden inside industrial machinery. Marcus did not touch the product. He had learned early that the ones who handled the goods were the ones who ended up in federal custody. His role was architecture, logistics, making sure things moved from point A to point B, while law enforcement looked the other way or got paid to develop sudden blindness. The meeting with the union boss happened at 9:30 in a diner that served breakfast 24 hours a day. Frank Morrissey represented the dockworkers, men who loaded and unloaded the legitimate commerce that kept the city functioning. He also represented access, the ability to ensure certain containers received expedited handling, while others got delayed in bureaucratic tangles that could stretch for weeks. Marcus slid an envelope across the Formica table, thick with cash that would never appear on any balance sheet. Frank pocketed it without counting, his face showing nothing, just another transaction in an economy that existed parallel to the one taught in business schools. Lunch was with a city councilman at a restaurant where the steaks cost more than a car payment, and the wine list required translation. David Chen had been on the city council for 12 years. his voting record carefully calibrated to serve constituents while protecting certain interests. The construction contracts they discussed were legal, at least on paper. The companies bidding on those contracts were legitimate businesses with proper licenses and tax identification numbers. That those companies were owned by shell corporations connected to the Donovan family was information that existed in documents spread across multiple jurisdictions, difficult to trace unless someone had motivation to dig deep and resources to follow threads through offshore accounts. At 3, Marcus met with his captains in the back room of a restaurant in the North End, where red sauce simmered on stoves and the walls held photographs of people long dead. 6 men who controlled different territories, each running operations that generated revenue flowing upward to the family. They discussed collections, the money paid by businesses for protection that was simultaneously a threat and a service. They resolved disputes, territorial disagreements that could escalate into violence if not managed with the careful diplomacy of people who understood that bodies attracted federal attention nobody wanted. This was the kingdom Marcus Donovan had built, or so he believed. The Donovan crime family operated with the efficiency of a corporation, which is what it was, just one operating outside regulatory frameworks. At the top sat Patrick Donovan, Marcus's uncle, 76 years old and managing health issues that kept him increasingly distant from daily operations. Officially, Patrick remained the boss. Practically, Marcus ran everything. The underboss title gave him authority without the target that came with being the actual head of the organization. Below them sat Angelo Rixai, the consigliere, advisor, and mediator, a man who had survived 40 years in organized crime by being smart enough to see around corners and careful enough never to be the first one through a door. 6 captains reported to Marcus, each managing crews that handled everything from loan sharking to waste management contracts, from gambling operations to the systematic theft of high-end vehicles that would be disassembled for parts or shipped overseas. Marcus controlled the ports, the choke point where goods entered the Northeast Corridor. He controlled protection rackets throughout South Boston and parts of Providence. He controlled labor unions in construction and shipping, which gave him leverage over legitimate businesses that needed labor peace to function. He controlled legitimate fronts, restaurants and construction companies and waste management services that generated legal income and provided employment for family members and associates who needed visible means of support. The empire generated approximately $30 million annually, though exact figures existed only in ledgers that would never be presented to the Internal Revenue Service. Marcus took home 7 figures, the exact amount varying based on the year's activities. He owned properties in 3 states, drove cars worth more than most homes, wore suits tailored by craftsmen who measured in millimeters. He had built this, or so he told himself every morning while running those 6 miles, while reviewing reports, while making decisions that affected hundreds of lives. He had taken the discipline learned in the Marines, the strategic thinking developed during deployments, the leadership skills forged under fire, and applied them to building something that would last, something that would provide for his family and his crew. What he had never questioned was the foundation. What he had never examined was the ground beneath his feet. Friday night arrived with the weight of accomplishment. The Albanian connection had taken 6 months to develop, careful negotiations with men who came from a culture where blood feuds lasted generations and trust had to be earned in increments. Viktor Krasniqi represented interests in Tirana, networks that moved heroin through the Balkans into Western Europe and across the Atlantic. The partnership would expand the Donovan family's portfolio, diversify revenue streams, increase market share in a business where competition was resolved through means that ranged from price cutting to outright warfare. The meeting took place in a private room at a steakhouse, the kind of place where captains of industry celebrated deals worth millions, and never realized they were dining 20 feet from men whose business models involved different kinds of risk management. Victor brought 2 associates, silent men whose eyes cataloged exits and whose hands stayed visible on the table. Marcus brought Reaper, and one other, a captain named James Sullivan who spoke Albanian learned during a deployment to Kosovo. They discussed terms with the careful language of people who could not write binding contracts or seek legal remedy for breaches. Quantities, prices, distribution channels, territories, dispute resolution mechanisms. Everything verbal, everything based on reputation, and the understanding that broken agreements led to consequences that would not involve courtrooms. The deal closed with handshakes and drinks, 50-year-old scotch that burned smooth and cost more per ounce than the heroin they were discussing cost per gram. Victor left first, his car pulling away into Friday night traffic. Marcus stayed, ordering another drink, feeling the satisfaction of a negotiation concluded successfully, another win in a career built on accumulating wins. Elena Marquez was still in the office when Marcus returned at 11. She handled accounting for one of the construction fronts, a legitimate business that employed union workers and bid on city contracts and paid taxes on revenue that was completely legal. Elena was 32, smart enough to handle complex financial structures and discreet enough to ask no questions about certain irregularities that might puzzle someone less understanding. She wore professional clothes that suggested competence rather than invitation, her dark hair pulled back efficiently, her manner friendly but appropriate. The attraction had been building for months, the kind of slow accumulation that happens when people work late together, when conversations extend past business into personal territory, when eye contact lasts a half-second longer than necessary. Marcus told himself it was nothing, just appreciation for a colleague, the kind of thing that never went anywhere because he was married, and she was an employee, and he had rules about mixing categories. But on this Friday night, with the Albanian deal closed and adrenaline still moving through his system, with Catherine at home doing whatever Catherine did in their separate lives, with Elena smiling at something he said and touching his arm in a gesture that could be interpreted multiple ways, the rules seemed less important than the moment. They went to a hotel in Cambridge, the kind of place that catered to business travelers and asked no questions about guests who checked in without luggage. The room was anonymous, identical to 10,000 others, decorated in colors chosen by committee to offend nobody. What happened there was mechanical rather than passionate, the physical intersection of 2 people acting on impulse that felt inevitable in the moment and would later seem incomprehensible. Afterward, lying in darkness while Elena slept, Marcus constructed justifications. Catherine and he had not been intimate in months. Their marriage had evolved into a professional partnership, 2 people sharing space and obligations but not connection. She had her charity work and her social circles. He had his business. They maintained appearances. This was just a momentary weakness, the kind of thing that happened in marriages that had lasted 2 decades and lost the fire that once animated them. He believed these things because believing them was easier than examining what they revealed about choices he had made and what he had become. At 3:47 in the morning, Marcus drove home through empty streets, the city sleeping around him, unaware and unconcerned with his private drama. Catherine's side of the bed was undisturbed, which could mean she was sleeping in the guest room or had never come home at all. He did not check. He showered, washing away evidence, then lay down in the darkness and fell asleep with the practiced ease of someone who had trained his conscience to stay quiet. Saturday morning arrived with sunlight streaming through floor-to-ceiling windows that overlooked Boston Harbor. Marcus woke at 9, which was late for him, his body still functioning on the internal clock that preferred 5:30 reveille. Catherine's side of the bed remained untouched, the sheets still crisp and hospital-cornered from whenever housekeeping had last changed them. In the kitchen, coffee waited in the automatic maker, brewed on schedule. A note on the counter, Catherine's handwriting unchanged from yesterday. Early errands. Back by dinner. The dash and initial. No warmth. No accusation, just information. Relief flooded through him, followed immediately by guilt at feeling relieved, followed by irritation at feeling guilty. He was 51 years old, a Marine Corps veteran, underboss of a crime family, a man who made decisions that affected millions of dollars and hundreds of lives. He did not need to feel like a teenager caught sneaking in after curfew. The phone rang at 10:23. Dmitry Volkov, Russian mob out of Brighton Beach, supplier of weapons that moved through channels Marcus had cultivated over 5 years. Their arrangement was simple and profitable. Dmitry provided access to Eastern European arsenals where guns could be acquired cheaply. Marcus provided distribution networks throughout New England. Both sides made money. Both sides maintained professional distance and mutual respect. Marcus, my friend. Dmitry's accent turned words into something musical. Situation has changed. Our arrangement no longer possible. What situation? Is complicated. Market forces, you understand. Perhaps we revisit in future. The line went dead. Marcus stared at the phone, trying to decode what had just happened. Market forces was the kind of phrase people used when they could not or would not explain the real reason. In 5 years, Dmitry had never canceled anything, never backed out of a commitment, never shown anything but absolute reliability. The text message arrived at 11:45. Tommy DeLuca, one of his captains running Providence operations. Boss, we got a problem. The Castellano family pulling back from joint venture. Vinny's guys say circumstances changed. What the fuck is going on? Marcus called Tommy, got voicemail, left a message to call back immediately. He called Vincent Castellano directly, a move that violated protocol because bosses did not call other bosses without going through proper channels. The call went to voicemail. Marcus did not leave a message. At 1:30, his lawyer called. Mitchell Bradford had handled the Donovan family's legitimate business for 15 years, setting up corporations and filing tax returns and representing interests that stayed carefully on the legal side of various lines. Marcus, I am getting calls. 3 different banks, all freezing routing accounts. Not official freeze, they are saying compliance review. But all same day, all same accounts. That is not coincidence. Can you fix it? I can inquire. But Marcus, this feels coordinated. This feels like someone with reach. Angelo Rixai requested an urgent meeting at 3. They met at a coffee shop in Cambridge, neutral territory where conversations could happen without attracting attention. Angelo was 65, a man who had survived 4 decades in organized crime by being smarter than everyone around him and never forgetting that survival was more important than pride. Marcus, something is happening. I got calls from old friends. People are repositioning, like they know something we do not. Know what? Angelo stirred his espresso, watching the liquid swirl. In 1987, I watched Tony Battaglia go from untouchable to invisible in 72 hours. Everybody pulling back at same time. No explanation, no warning. Just suddenly he had no friends. What happened to him? He sells insurance now. Alive, healthy, but completely out. Angelo looked up, his eyes holding 40 years of accumulated wisdom. Whatever is happening, it is organized, it is coordinated, and it is targeting you. The calls continued throughout the afternoon. Konstantin Markov, Brighton Beach Russian boss. Marcus is not personal, is business reality. Victor Chen, running Chinatown operations. Market conditions change, my friend. We must all adapt. Every conversation polite, every conversation apologetic, every conversation final. Reaper reported at 5. Boss, shipment from Santos. Customs grabbed it, not random inspection. They knew exactly which container. We got a leak or something bigger. Marcus sat in his office, watching the afternoon light fade over the harbor, trying to construct a pattern from scattered data points. In the Marines, they had taught him to assess threats, identify patterns, develop response strategies. But this felt different. This felt like fighting an enemy he could not see, whose tactics he did not understand, whose objective remained unclear. At 7:30, he drove home to the penthouse, expecting to find Catherine back from her errands, dinner on the table or takeout containers from one of the restaurants they frequented. Instead, he found emptiness that felt different from normal emptiness, silence that carried weight. Her closet still held clothes, but the favorites were missing. The Armani suit she wore to important events, the Louboutin heels she loved, the cashmere coats that cost more than rent in most of Boston. Her bathroom still had toiletries, but the prescriptions were gone. Her office still had furniture, but the laptop had disappeared, the files had vanished, the USB drives that held encrypted backups had evaporated. On the dining room table, placed with geometric precision at the exact center, sat her wedding ring. 22-karat gold, 3-karat diamond, designed by a jeweler who worked by appointment only. Next to it, a single sheet of paper, her handwriting filling half the page. Marcus, I am not leaving because of last night. I am leaving because of the last 22 years. You never saw me. You never valued me. You never even asked. I gave you everything and you treated me like furniture. Do not look for me. Do not call my father. This is my decision. What happens next is consequence, not revenge. Catherine. He read it 3 times, trying to find hidden meaning in spaces between words, trying to decode what she meant by consequence. His phone showed 17 missed calls, but none from Catherine. He dialed her number. Disconnected. He texted. Not delivered. Panic rising, he called Jack, their son, 27 years old and living in Queens, a ranger who had done 3 tours in Afghanistan before medical discharge, brought him home with shrapnel scars and nightmares that therapy was slowly helping him process. Dad, Jack's voice carried wariness. Mom said you would call. Where is she? She asked me not to say. Jack, this is serious. I need to talk to her. Dad, she told me she was leaving. 2 days ago. She asked me to give you a message. Tell your father that borrowed power always comes with conditions, and when conditions are broken, power is reclaimed. What does that mean? I do not know, but Dad, this has been coming for years. You just never noticed. Where is she? I do not know. She said she needed clean break. Asked me to give you a message instead. I need to see her. I do not think that is going to happen. Jack paused, the silence carrying judgment. Dad, how long has it been since you actually talked to Mom? Not about schedules or logistics. Actually talked. Marcus could not answer because he could not remember. You should talk to Grandpa Sterling, Jack said. I think he knows more than I do. The drive to William Sterling's estate took 90 minutes through Saturday evening traffic. 90 minutes for Marcus to construct theories and discard them, to review the last 22 years for clues he had missed, to wonder how his wife could disappear and his empire could crumble on the same day. Sterling lived in Westchester County, old money territory where estates hid behind stone walls and trees planted by previous generations. The gate opened as Marcus approached. No intercom challenge, no security check, just automatic recognition and access. The driveway curved through manicured grounds to a house that had stood for a century, the kind of place that whispered old money and quiet power. Sterling waited in his study, a room lined with books that had been read and art that had been collected with knowledge rather than investment strategy. He sat in a leather chair that had molded to his frame over decades, a glass of scotch in his hand, another glass poured and waiting on the side table. 72 years old, silver-haired, wearing casual clothes that cost more than they appeared to cost, the kind of man who never needed to prove anything to anyone. "Mr. Donovan, please sit." Sterling's voice carried the neutral authority of someone accustomed to being obeyed without raising volume. Marcus sat, took the offered scotch, waited. "Your wife left you." Sterling said it as fact, not question. "You want to know why. You want to know what happens next. You want me to fix this. Can you?" Wrong question. Sterling sipped his drink. Better question is, should I? Even better question is, why did I spend 22 years building you up only to watch you fail the simplest test? I do not understand. No, you do not. Which is the problem? Sterling set down his glass, leaned forward with the focus of someone about to deliver information that would reshape reality. "Marcus, what do you know about how you became underboss of the Donovan family?" "I earned it. 6 years in the Marines. Came back, proved myself, moved up through hard work." Sterling smiled, the expression sad rather than amused. "No, you were installed. Every promotion, every opportunity, every close call where you survived when you should have failed. Facilitated, managed, orchestrated." "By who?" "By me, with help from Catherine." Sterling opened a laptop, turned it so Marcus could see the screen. A timeline appeared, dates and events spanning 25 years, each entry annotated with footnotes that revealed machinery operating beneath visible surfaces. 1995. You leave Marines struggling to find work. Patrick Donovan offers you job as driver. Coincidence? No, I suggested to Patrick that you might be useful. I had vetted you. Military discipline, clean record, married to my daughter. Good investment. 1999. Federal investigation threatens Donovan family. Key witness recants testimony. You think witness just changed his mind? No, Castellano family applied pressure. Why? Because I asked Vincent Castellano to do me favor. He owed me from 1989 when I helped resolve situation that could have started war. 2003. You get promoted to captain after previous captain retires. You think he retired because he wanted to? No. He had gambling debts, serious debts. I paid them off through intermediary. Made clear that retirement was healthier option than bankruptcy. The timeline continued. Every victory, every narrow escape, every moment when Marcus thought his strategic brilliance or tactical skill had carried the day. All of it orchestrated, facilitated, managed by invisible hands that had been shaping his path for decades. Sterling continued, his voice steady and clinical. 2007. Morty family withdraws from territorial dispute. You thought you outmaneuvered them. Wrong. I called in favor with Frank Morty dating back to 1985. He withdrew. You won, but it was not your victory. 2010. You become underboss when previous underboss dies of heart attack. Natural causes, verified by autopsy, but timing interesting. 2 weeks before he died, I had conversation with Patrick about succession planning. Heart attack was natural. Timing was fortunate. 2015. Your biggest score. Weapons shipment hijacking succeeds because security was minimal. You thought you planned well. You did. But security was minimal because people who should have been there received better offers elsewhere. Offers facilitated by my network. 2018. RICO investigation collapses when prosecutor gets transferred. You thought investigation lacked evidence. Wrong. Investigation had plenty evidence, but prosecutor received promotion offer that required immediate transfer. Promotion arranged by someone in Justice Department who owed me favor. 2021. Albanian alliance forms. You thought Viktor Krasniqi approached you because of your reputation. Partially true, but introduction was facilitated. Terms were pre-negotiated through back channel. Agreement you reached was agreement I architected. Marcus stared at the timeline, each entry destroying a piece of the identity he had constructed over 25 years. Every accomplishment revealed as assisted. Every victory shown as managed. Every close call exposed as orchestrated survival. You did not build your position, Marcus. You were installed into it. Every structural support, every strategic advantage, every fortunate break. Facilitated. Why? Because Catherine loved you, and I love my daughter. I made sure her husband had status, security, respect. I made sure you could provide for her and for your son. But there was one condition that I never stated because I assumed you understood. Treat her with respect. Value her. See her. You failed that condition. Repeatedly. For 22 years. Marcus found his voice, though it came out rough. The affair with Alina. You knew about that too. I knew within 6 hours. Just like I knew about Sarah in 2019. And Michelle in 2016. Just like Catherine knew. She knew. Of course she knew. She is not stupid, Marcus. She is Columbia Law graduate. She passed bar with honors. She could have been partner at any firm in this country. Instead, she became your wife. Your support. Your unpaid, unacknowledged consigliere. What? Who do you think structured half your deals? Who do you think identified weaknesses in rival organizations? Who do you think maintained the network that I used to facilitate your rise? Catherine. She was not just my daughter. She was my operational partner. For 22 years, she built your career while you treated her like furniture. Marcus felt the room tilting, reality reshaping into configuration he could not process. The affair with Alina was not why she left. Sterling's voice carried certainty. It was confirmation that you had learned nothing. 22 years of chances to see her, value her, treat her as partner instead of accessory. 22 years wasted. So what happens now? Sterling leaned back, his expression neutral. Now the support structure is withdrawn, not as punishment, as natural consequence. Every favor I granted on your behalf is being recalled. Every pressure I applied in your favor is being removed. Every structural advantage I provided is being eliminated. You are not being destroyed, Marcus. You are being revealed. The world is about to see what Marcus Donovan is worth without borrowed elevation. And I suspect the answer will be significantly less than you imagine. Marcus left the estate at 2 in the morning, driving through darkness that felt appropriate for what he now understood. 22 years of marriage to a woman he had never really seen. 25 years of career built on foundations he had never examined. 51 years of life spent believing he was architect when he was just another brick in someone else's structure. The city glittered around him, lights marking lives being lived, dreams being chased, consequences being delivered to people who thought they could avoid them. Marcus Donovan drove toward a future that was arriving whether he was ready or not, the borrowed power already draining away, the real test finally beginning. Behind him, in an estate in Westchester County, William Sterling poured another scotch and looked at a photograph of his daughter on their wedding day, smiling with her eyes, holding secrets her husband would take 22 years to begin learning. The game had always been larger than Marcus understood, and now, finally, he was about to learn the rules. This content is entirely fictional and does not promote, glorify, or romanticize organized crime, violence, or illegal activity. The story explores the psychological, moral, and social consequences of criminal choices and the price paid for losing one's humanity in pursuit of power. Sunday morning arrived without the comfort of routine. Marcus Donovan sat in his penthouse at 6 in the morning, coffee growing cold in his hand, staring at a city that no longer felt like his kingdom. The harbor stretched below, ships moving in patterns that followed laws of commerce and tide, indifferent to the small dramas of men who thought themselves important. His phone lay on the granite counter, 17 missed calls from numbers he recognized, and 3 from numbers he did not. None from Catherine. The night had passed without sleep, his mind replaying Sterling's revelation in loops that grew no less devastating with repetition. Every victory recontextualized. Every accomplishment revealed as assisted. 25 years of identity constructed on borrowed foundations, and now those foundations were being withdrawn with the systematic precision of someone dismantling scaffolding after construction is complete. Reaper arrived at 7, earlier than summoned, which meant he already knew something was wrong. Thomas Riley had spent 2 decades reading Marcus's moods, interpreting silences, understanding what was not said as clearly as what was. He poured himself coffee without asking, sat across from Marcus at the kitchen island, waited. "We have a problem," Marcus said. The words felt inadequate, like calling a hurricane a weather event. "I know." Reaper's voice carried the flat calm of someone who had been making calls since 5 in the morning. "I got 3 captains asking for leave of absence. Family emergencies, they say, all on same day. That is not coincidence." "What else?" DeLuca crew not answering calls. Albanian connection went dark. Russians acting like we got plague. And Angelo wants emergency meeting. Whole command structure. By 9, they were assembled in the back room of a restaurant in the North End, the same room where decisions had been made for 30 years, where the smell of garlic and red wine sauce mixed with cigar smoke and the accumulated weight of conversations that could never be repeated in public. Angelo Ricks sat at the head of the table, his 65 years showing in the careful way he lowered himself into the chair. The 6 captains ranged along the sides, men between 40 and 60, each representing a different territory, a different revenue stream, a different piece of the machinery that generated millions. Marcus stood. He had learned in the Marines that when delivering bad news, you stood, you made eye contact, you did not hide behind furniture or authority. "We are facing coordinated pressure. Multiple organizations withdrawing support on same timeline. Banks freezing accounts. Partners canceling agreements. This is organized. This is deliberate. I need to know who is with me." The silence that followed lasted 3 seconds too long. In negotiations, in confrontations, in moments when loyalty was tested, 3 seconds was the difference between confidence and doubt. Tommy DeLuca spoke first, captain of Providence Operations, a man who had been with Marcus for 12 years. "Boss, I am with you, but I need to understand what we are facing. This feels bigger than business dispute. This feels political." Angelo leaned forward, his hands flat on the table, liver spots marking skin that had seen decades of Boston winters. "Marcus, I have been in this life for 40 years. I have seen territorial wars. I have seen federal prosecutions. I have seen internal coups. This is none of those things. This is structural adjustment. Someone with serious reach is repositioning entire market." "Who has that kind of reach?" Angelo looked at Marcus with eyes that held knowledge he was trying to decide whether to share. In organized crime, there are 2 kinds of power. There is operational power, the kind we have. Control territory, run crews, generate revenue. Then there is architectural power, the kind that shapes the environment where operational power functions. Very few people have architectural power, and when they exercise it, smart people do not fight. They adapt. The meeting continued for 2 hours, Marcus trying to rally his people, trying to project confidence he did not feel, trying to construct strategy for fighting an enemy whose identity remained unclear, and whose tactics seemed to operate outside normal rules of engagement. Every suggestion met with polite skepticism. Every plan revealed vulnerabilities that had not existed a week ago. By noon, Marcus understood what Angelo had been trying to tell him without stating it directly. The war was already over. The only question was whether Marcus would accept defeat gracefully or force everyone into a conflict nobody wanted. The afternoon brought more withdrawals. 3 more captains requested temporary leaves, their reasons varying but their timing identical. 2 key enforcers stopped answering calls. The legitimate businesses that provided cover started receiving calls from partners who suddenly discovered scheduling conflicts that would prevent further cooperation. The union boss who controlled the dockworkers left a message saying he could no longer guarantee labor peace, his voice apologetic but final. At 4 in the afternoon, Patrick Donovan called. Marcus's uncle, the official boss, 76 years old and managing health that deteriorated in increments, his voice carrying the weight of age and accumulated regret. Nephew, the council wants meeting. Tomorrow, Newark warehouse, you need to attend. What is this about? Territory reallocation, market adjustments, you know how these things work. Marcus knew exactly how these things worked. He had been present at 3 such meetings over the years, watching as men who had violated unspoken rules or become liabilities were systematically stripped of authority and redistributed into irrelevance. He had never imagined being the subject rather than the observer. Uncle, do I have a choice? Everyone has choice, but some choices have only one answer that does not end badly. The call ended. Marcus sat in his office as afternoon shadows lengthened across Boston Harbor, watching ships move through channels marked by buoys and lights, following paths that had been mapped by people who understood that navigation required knowing where the hazards lay beneath the surface. Angelo arrived at 6, unannounced but expected. He sat without invitation, poured 2 glasses from the bottle of Scotch Marcus kept for serious conversations, slid one across the desk. I have seen this before. 1987. Tony Battaglia thought he was untouchable, made bad decisions, disrespected wrong people. 1 week later, he was nobody. Council met, reallocated his territory, gave him choice. Walk away clean or be removed forcefully. He walked. What happened to him? He sells insurance in New Hampshire. Alive, healthy, invisible. Angelo sipped his drink, his eyes holding 40 years of survived decisions. Marcus, you can fight this. Pride says fight, but wisdom says calculate cost. Fighting means bodies. Bodies mean federal attention. Federal attention means everyone loses. Council will offer you choice. Take the deal. Live to see another day. What if I cannot accept being nobody? Then you accept being dead. Angelo's voice carried no judgment, just mathematics. Those are only 2 options when you lose architectural support: irrelevance or elimination. Irrelevance is better. That night, Marcus drove through Boston without destination, past neighborhoods where he had grown up, past corners where he had learned the business, past buildings that held memories of who he had been before the Marines, before the marriage, before the accumulation of power that turned out to be borrowed. The city looked the same as it always had, but his relationship to it had fundamentally changed. He was no longer master of these streets. He was just another driver, moving through space that belonged to no one and everyone. Wednesday arrived with the weight of inevitability. The Newark warehouse sat in an industrial zone where legitimate businesses operated alongside enterprises that preferred privacy, where trucks came and went on schedules that had nothing to do with posted hours. Marcus arrived at 2 in the afternoon, Reaper driving, Angelo sitting in back with the silence of someone attending a funeral. The warehouse interior was vast and empty except for a conference table set in the center, 6 chairs on one side, 1 chair facing them. The symbolism was clear and intentional. Marcus was not here as an equal. He was here as a subject of discussion, a problem being resolved with the efficient brutality of men who understood that sentiment could not interfere with structure. Vincent Castellano sat in the center position, 58 years old, boss of the New York family, a man who had survived 30 years in a business where survival was its own achievement. To his left sat Robert DeLuca, Philadelphia boss, and Frank Morty, representing the New Jersey family. To his right, Anthony Rizzo from Providence and Patrick Donovan, looking older than his 76 years, avoiding eye contact with his nephew. Marcus sat in the single chair. Reaper and Angelo stood behind him, their presence token rather than protective, witnesses to a process already concluded. Vincent spoke first, his voice carrying the New York accent that marked territory as clearly as any map. Marcus, this is not trial. You are not being accused. This is market adjustment, structural reallocation. You understand how these things work. I understand. Good makes this easier. Vincent pulled out a folder, opened it, began reading terms that had been decided before Marcus entered the room. Donovan family operations require restructuring. Patrick is retiring, effective immediately. Marcus looked at his uncle. Patrick's eyes remained fixed on the table, his hands trembling slightly, age and regret creating a palsy that medication could not address. Boston port operations transfer to DeLuca family. Philadelphia has infrastructure to handle increased volume. Protection rackets merge into Rizzo operations. Providence makes geographic sense. Union control becomes shared management, council oversight. Prevents any single family from having too much leverage. Smuggling routes get reallocated based on efficiency metrics. What about me? Your legitimate businesses you keep. Personal assets untouched. Your wealth remains yours. Your title retires with Patrick. And if I refuse? Frank Morty leaned forward, his expression sympathetic but firm. Then we have problem. Problem requires solution. Solutions in our business are messy. Nobody wants messy. You are smart man, Marcus. Do math. Marcus did the math. Fighting meant war. War meant bodies in streets and federal attention that would bring RICO indictments that could break families. The council was offering him a choice between irrelevance and elimination, but framing it as if he had real agency in the matter. He turned to Patrick. Uncle, you are allowing this. Patrick finally looked up, his eyes watery with age and something that might have been guilt. Marcus, I am 76 years old. Doctor says I got maybe 2 years. Heart condition, kidney issues, things that happen when you get old. Family needs to survive beyond me. Council made good offer. I retire with full pension, respect, protection for my grandchildren. Or I fight, we all lose, family gets absorbed anyway. I am choosing survival. For my kids, for their kids. I am sorry, nephew. But I cannot sacrifice my bloodline for your pride. The betrayal hit deeper than expected. Family was supposed to mean something. Blood was supposed to create obligations that transcended business calculations. But Patrick was choosing his own children's future over Marcus's present, a choice that made mathematical sense even as it revealed that loyalty had limits defined by genetic proximity. Angelo whispered from behind, "Boss, take the deal. Live to see another day." Marcus looked around the table. Vincent Castellano, with whom he had done business for 15 years. Robert DeLuca, who had been ally on multiple operations. Frank Morty, who had always been professional and fair. Anthony Rizzo, who had shared information and resources. Patrick Donovan, his own blood. All of them looking at him with expressions that mixed sympathy with finality, men who understood they were ending his career, but doing it in the kindest way their business allowed. I need time to think. Vincent nodded. You have 48 hours. Friday noon, we need answer. Yes, you walk away clean, no problems, no retaliation. No, we proceed differently. And Marcus, understand that proceeding differently means you lose anyway. Only question is how much damage happens first. The meeting ended. Marcus walked out into afternoon sunlight that felt too bright for the occasion. Reaper and Angelo flanking him like guards escorting a prisoner who was being released rather than condemned. The drive back to Boston took 90 minutes. 90 minutes of silence that felt appropriate for processing the systematic dismantling of an identity that had taken 25 years to construct. Thursday morning, Marcus called Catherine. The number he had been dialing for 22 years now went straight to recording. Your call cannot be completed as dialed. He tried texting. Not delivered. He tried email. Bounce back. She had not just left. She had erased every connection point, severed every line of communication, disappeared with the thoroughness of someone who had planned the exit with military precision. He called Jack. His son answered on the fourth ring, his voice carrying the wariness that had characterized every conversation since Jack returned from Afghanistan with wounds visible and invisible. Dad, I need help reaching your mother. She does not want to be reached. Jack, this is important. My entire life is falling apart. I need to talk to her. Your life is falling apart because of choices you made. Mom is not responsible for fixing it. Neither am I. The words landed like physical blows. Marcus tried again. I just need to understand what is happening, what she wants, how to fix this. Jack's sigh carried 3 years of accumulated disappointment. Dad, Mom said she would meet you. Once. To explain. Not to reconcile, not to fix anything. Just to explain. She will call you with time and place. But Dad, do not expect forgiveness. Do not expect second chance. Expect honesty. And if you have any respect for her at all, you will listen without defending, without explaining, without making it about you. The call ended. Marcus sat in his empty penthouse, surrounded by possessions that proved nothing except that he had been good at generating revenue in an industry that rewarded ruthlessness more than ethics. The view of Boston Harbor that had once symbolized his kingdom now just showed water and ships, and a city that did not care whether he existed or not. Catherine called Thursday afternoon. Her voice carried the professional tone of someone scheduling a business meeting. No warmth, no anger, just information transfer. Tomorrow, 2 p.m., Boston Public Library, main reading room, come alone. Friday at 2, Marcus sat in the reading room where tourists photographed architecture and students studied for exams that would determine futures built on legitimate foundations. Catherine arrived exactly on time, dressed in clothes that suggested lawyer rather than wife, her bearing confident and controlled, a woman who had made decisions and found peace with them. She sat across from him, placed her phone face down on the table, looked at him with eyes that assessed rather than connected. Marcus, I do not need your apology for sleeping with Alina, or Sarah in 2019, or Michelle in 2016, or Amanda in 2014. You knew. Of course I knew. I am not stupid. I am not blind. I am Columbia Law graduate. I passed the bar with honors. I know how to find evidence. I know how to read bank statements and credit card receipts and recognize perfume that is not mine. Then why? Catherine's expression did not change. Why did I stay? Because I loved you. Why did I not confront you? Because I thought if I gave you everything you needed, you would eventually see me. Why did I leave now? Because after 22 years, I finally understood that you were never going to change. You were never going to value me. You were never going to even notice me unless I was gone. I noticed you. No, you noticed what I did for you. You noticed when dinner was not ready. You noticed when I was not available to attend some function. But you never noticed me. Catherine leaned forward, her voice dropping to intensity that forced attention. Marcus, do you know what my favorite book is? Do you know what I studied in college before law school? Do you know what keeps me awake at night or what makes me happy? Do you know anything about me that is not functional to your needs? Marcus tried to answer and realized he could not. 22 years of marriage and he knew her schedule, her social commitments, her role in maintaining the appearance of legitimate success. But her interior life, her thoughts, her dreams, her fears, remained territory he had never explored because he had never thought to ask. I gave you everything, Catherine continued. Money, security, freedom to do whatever you wanted. You gave me a cage with gold bars. You gave me title of wife without partnership. You gave me visibility without being seen. The words cut through defenses Marcus had not known he was maintaining. He started to speak, to explain, to justify. Catherine raised a hand. I am not finished. You think I left because you cheated. Wrong. I left because of what the cheating revealed. That after 22 years, you still treated me like furniture. Like something that belongs to you but requires no maintenance, no attention, no consideration. You respected your captains more than you respected me. You consulted with Angelo more than you consulted with me. You valued Reaper's opinion more than you valued mine. I did not know you wanted to be consulted. Catherine's laugh was sharp and brief. Marcus, I have law degree from Columbia. I have strategic mind that your father recognized before you did. Do you know how many of your deals I structured? How many of your strategies I developed? How many of your problems I solved? Marcus felt reality shifting again, the ground beneath his understanding revealing itself as one more illusion. 60% of your legal documents I wrote. 40% of your operations I planned. I identified weaknesses in rival organizations. I analyzed market conditions. I developed long-term strategies. I reported everything to my father, who then orchestrated the moves that made you look brilliant. You worked with Sterling. Worked with him? Catherine's voice rose slightly before she controlled it. Marcus, I was his operational partner. My father has arthritis. He has vision problems. He has technology skills of someone who grew up with rotary phones. Who do you think managed the actual infrastructure? Who do you think maintained the network? Who do you think did the work while he provided the strategic vision? I never knew. Because you never asked. Because you assumed I spent my days planning charity events and my nights sleeping while you built your empire. The empire I built for you because I loved you and wanted you to succeed and thought that if you became successful, you would finally see me as partner instead of accessory. Marcus felt something breaking inside, not dramatic like in movies, but quiet like ice cracking under weight that had been accumulating for years. Do you know what Jack's first words were? Catherine asked. No, you were on business trip. Do you know his favorite subject in school? No, you never attended parent-teacher conferences. Do you know what his nightmares are about from Afghanistan? No, because you never asked him either. You were too busy building empire that you thought was yours, but was actually scaffolding we constructed around you. I am sorry. Catherine's expression softened slightly, not with forgiveness but with something like pity. I know you are, now, after everything collapsed. After you lost the power you thought was yours. After consequences became unavoidable. But Marcus, I needed you to see me while we were together. Seeing me now, after I am gone, does not repair what was broken. It just confirms that you only pay attention when the cost of ignoring becomes too high. Is there any possibility? No, Catherine's voice carried absolute certainty. That door closed when I left the ring on the table. I am not angry anymore. I am not hurt. I am done. I wish you well, Marcus. I hope you rebuild something real, something that actually belongs to you. But I will not be part of it. That story ended when you chose someone else for a night and thought it would not matter. They talked for another hour, but nothing of substance changed. Catherine explained what she would do next, lawyer work for legitimate firms, consulting that used her skills without requiring connection to criminal enterprise. She explained that she would not testify against him, would not cooperate with law enforcement, would simply disappear into a life that did not include him. She explained that this was not revenge, just natural consequence of choices accumulated over 22 years. Marcus walked out of the library into afternoon sunlight that felt harsh after the controlled lighting inside. For the first time in 25 years, he felt completely alone, not the satisfying solitude of a man at the top, but the hollow isolation of someone who had lost connection to everything that mattered while he was too busy accumulating things that did not. Thursday evening, Marcus drove to Queens, to the small apartment where Jack lived alone, the kind of place that cost too much for what it offered, but was all a veteran on disability could manage while trying to rebuild a life interrupted by war. Jack answered the door without surprise, as if he had been expecting this visit, as if Catherine had warned him it was coming. They sat in a living room that held furniture from second-hand stores and photographs from deployment, images of young men in desert camouflage smiling with the confidence of people who did not yet know what they would see, what they would do, what they would become. "Mom said you would come," Jack said, "eventually." Marcus tried to explain what was happening, the council meeting, the systematic dismantling, the revelation about Sterling and Catherine. Jack listened without interrupting, his face showing nothing, the same expression he probably wore when officers briefed missions that would put him in situations where people would try to kill him. When Marcus finished, Jack was quiet for a full minute. Then he spoke. "Dad, I have known about the family business since I was 14. Mom sat me down, explained everything, gave me choice. Join you or choose different path. I chose Army Rangers because I wanted to serve something real, something honorable, something that mattered beyond money and power. You never told me. You never asked. Just like you never asked Mom what she wanted. Just like you never asked me about Afghanistan, about what I saw, about why I wake up at 3 a.m. covered in sweat from dreams I cannot talk about." Marcus felt the words like physical impacts, each one revealing another failure he had not recognized, while he was busy being important. "You want to know why I enlisted instead of joining your operation?" Jack leaned forward, his eyes holding intensity that came from having faced death and decided it was preferable to some alternatives. "Because I watched you for 18 years. I learned what you valued. And it was not family. It was not honor. It was not anything except accumulation. More territory, more money, more respect from people whose respect was not worth having. That is not fair." "Is it not?" Jack's voice rose slightly. "When did you last have dinner with Mom where you actually talked instead of checking your phone? When did you attend one of my school events? When did you choose us over business?" Marcus tried to remember and could not produce a single example. "Mom protected you for 22 years, Jack continued. From feds, from rivals, from yourself. She built your career while you treated her like secretary. And I watched it happen. Watched her get smaller while you got bigger. Watched her stop smiling. Watched her accept that this was just how marriage worked in your world. I did not know. Because you did not look." Jack stood, walked to the window, looked out at Queens stretching toward Manhattan in the distance. "Dad, Mom gave me a message for you when I was 16. She said, your father is good man underneath, but he is lost. Do not become him. That was 8 years before she left. She was already grieving the marriage then. She just gave you 8 more years to wake up." The silence that followed felt appropriate, the kind of quiet that came after something ended and before something new could begin. "I want to make this right," Marcus said. "You cannot make it right." Jack turned from the window. "You can only make what comes next different. Mom is gone. Empire is gone. Power is gone. Question is, what are you going to do with what remains?" "I do not know." "Then figure it out." Jack's voice softened slightly. "Because, Dad, you are 51. You probably have 25 or 30 years left. What do you want those years to mean? More of the same, trying to rebuild power that was never really yours, or something that actually matters, something real?" "Like what?" Jack shrugged. "That is question only you can answer. But I will tell you this. If you try to rebuild the empire, if you try to get back into the life, I am done. Permanently. But if you try to build something honest, something legitimate, something that helps instead of harms, I will help you. Not because you deserve it, because everyone deserves chance to become better than they were. Marcus left Jack's apartment feeling simultaneously destroyed and unburdened, the weight of accumulated lies and borrowed power lifting even as the structure they had supported collapsed. The drive back to Boston took 2 hours through evening traffic, 2 hours to process that his son was offering something more valuable than forgiveness. He was offering possibility, the chance to build identity on truth instead of illusion. The question was whether Marcus could accept being small enough to start from zero. The question was whether he could survive being nobody before learning to become someone real. Friday at noon, Marcus called Vincent Castellano. "I accept counsel's terms. I am out." Vincent's voice carried respect that had been absent during the warehouse meeting. "Smart choice, Marcus. You keep your dignity this way. And your life. One more thing. FBI has been building case. With you stepping down, that investigation will redirect to other priorities. Consider it parting gift. Clean exit." The call ended. Marcus sat in his office overlooking Boston Harbor, watching the same ships move through the same channels, following the same patterns. But now, he understood something he had missed for 25 years. The ships did not own the harbor. They moved through space that existed before them and would remain after they were gone. Power was not possession. It was temporary permission to occupy territory that belonged to forces larger than any individual. And when that permission was revoked, the only question was whether you fought reality or accepted it. Marcus Donovan had spent 51 years fighting. Maybe the next 25 could be different. Maybe being nobody was the first step toward becoming somebody real. This content is entirely fictional and does not promote, glorify, or romanticize organized crime, violence, or illegal activity. The story explores the psychological, moral, and social consequences of criminal choices and the price paid for losing one's humanity in pursuit of power. The coffee shop in Cambridge sat on a corner where students hurried between classes and professionals grabbed caffeine between meetings, a place so ordinary that nobody would remember who sat in the back booth or what they discussed. Sophia Torres arrived first, ordering black coffee and choosing the table with sight lines to both entrances, habits from 12 years in the FBI that no amount of civilian life could completely erase. She was 41, looked 35, carried herself with the coiled readiness of someone trained to expect trouble. Marcus Donovan arrived exactly on time, which told her he had been military, and alone, which told her he understood the rules of this meeting. He ordered coffee, sat across from her without asking permission, waited for her to start. The silence between them held the weight of 3 years of investigation, hundreds of hours of surveillance, wiretaps that had captured conversations about things that would put men in federal prison for decades. "Mr. Donovan, I have spent 3 years trying to put you away." Sophia's voice carried the flat professional tone of someone who had testified in courtrooms where emotion was weakness. "I have evidence, recordings, witnesses, financial trails that lead from legitimate businesses to operations that are decidedly not legitimate. I have enough to charge you under RICO statutes that would put you away until you are 75. Marcus sipped his coffee, his face showing nothing. "Then why am I sitting here instead of an interrogation room?" "Because 4 days ago, my case got reassigned." Sophia's expression showed the frustration she normally kept controlled. 3 years of work, 85% complete, suddenly redirected to white-collar division. Memo from Deputy Director saying Donovan organized crime activities no longer priority target. No explanation, no justification, just redirect to other cases. "You think that is strange?" "I think it is coordinated. I think someone with serious reach made phone calls that changed priorities at level I cannot access. And I think that someone is William Sterling." Marcus's reaction, or lack of it, told her she was right. "I have been FBI agent for 12 years, Sophia continued. I have taken down drug dealers, money launderers, murderers, but I cannot touch Sterling. Because what is his crime? Knowing things, not illegal. Making suggestions, not illegal. Withdrawing personal support, not illegal. She leaned forward, her intensity breaking through professional mask. I think you are mid-level player who thought he was top tier. I think Sterling is actually running things. And I think he is untouchable, because he does not technically break any laws. Marcus met her eyes. You are right, about all of it, but understanding that does not change anything. It could. Sophia pulled out a business card, slid it across the table. If you ever want to testify about organized crime, not Sterling but actual criminals, I can offer immunity. Fresh start. Witness protection if needed. Clean break from life that is clearly over anyway. I will not rat. That line I will not cross. Sophia studied him for a long moment, then nodded slowly. I respect that. More than you know. My brother, Carlos, he got killed by organized crime in 2015. Refused to pay protection money for his restaurant. They made example. That is why I do this work. That is why I wanted you. I am sorry about your brother. Are you, or are you just sorry you got caught in system bigger than you understood? Sophia stood, leaving the card on the table. Whatever you do next, Mr. Donovan, stay clean. Because next time there will not be mysterious reprioritization. Next time I will finish what I started. She left. Marcus sat alone with cooling coffee and a business card he would never use, thinking about a restaurant owner named Carlos who died because he had integrity Marcus had spent 25 years avoiding. The call from William Sterling came that evening. Not a request for meeting, just information. Sunday, 3 p.m., my estate. We have things to discuss. Sunday arrived with autumn rain, the kind that fell steady and cold, turning leaves to mulch, and reminding everyone that winter was patient and inevitable. Marcus drove to Westchester County alone. Reaper offered to come, but Marcus declined. This conversation needed to happen without witnesses, without the comfort of backup, just two men discussing what remained after everything else had been stripped away. Sterling waited in the same study where he had delivered the first revelation, but this time the scotch was replaced with tea, the formal alcohol of serious business replaced with the domestic comfort of something simpler. He poured 2 cups, handed one to Marcus, settled into his chair with the careful movements of a man whose body reminded him daily that 72 years had accumulated costs. You accepted counsel's terms. Smart decision. Did I have choice? Everyone has choice, but some choices have only one answer that does not end badly. Sterling sipped his tea, his eyes holding 7 decades of accumulated observation. Marcus, you asked me once why I did all this. Built your career. Supported you for 22 years. Let me give you complete answer. I thought it was for Catherine. Partially, but I spent 28 years in CIA. I saw governments rise and fall. I saw strongmen who thought they were invincible get overthrown by people who understood structure better than they understood force. I learned one truth that shaped everything after. Individuals are temporary. Systems persist. What does that mean? When I retired, I looked at organized crime the way I looked at geopolitics during Cold War. Chaotic system that could be structured to minimize damage. I do not run crime families. I do not order violence. I do not traffic in drugs or weapons or human misery. But I understand that crime exists, will always exist. Question is not whether crime happens. Question is whether it happens as chaos or as managed system. You chose managed system. I chose to create structure that reduced body count. Sterling set down his cup, leaned forward. When families go to war, civilians die. Small business owners like Carlos Torres get killed for refusing to pay protection. Neighborhoods burn. Children get caught in crossfire. When there is no structure, there is maximum damage. So I created structure, not through force, through information. I know who owes who. I know who fears who. I know where leverage points are. And when system gets unbalanced, when someone acts recklessly and threatens to bring chaos, I adjust. You think you are doing good. I think I am doing what is necessary in a world that is not ideal. Sterling's voice carried certainty that came from decades of defended positions. You think I destroyed you as punishment for hurting Catherine. Wrong. I removed support because you became destabilizing factor. Your Albanian heroin deal would have brought federal heat that would have destabilized entire Northeast corridor. Your disrespect to Catherine was symptom, not cause. Cause was, you stopped understanding your place in ecosystem. You thought you were king. You were middle management who forgot who signed your checks. So this was always going to happen. Eventually, Catherine leaving accelerated timeline. But yes, you were going to be adjusted regardless. Marcus absorbed this, the final piece of puzzle clicking into place. His fall was not personal vendetta. It was systems maintenance. He had been removed the way you remove malfunctioning part from machinery, not out of anger, but out of necessity to keep larger mechanism functioning. Sterling continued, I am 72. I will not live forever. This system I maintain needs maintainer. Someone who understands structure over ego. Someone who has learned humility through failure rather than never being tested. I am not offering you criminal empire. I am offering you role. Learn to be architect instead of operator. Learn to see patterns instead of just tactics. Learn to maintain balance instead of seeking dominance. Why would you trust me? I do not trust you. I trust evolution. You failed old tests spectacularly, but failure is best teacher if you are capable of learning. Question is, can you, or will you stay stuck in who you were? Marcus thought about the offer, thought about stepping into Sterling's role, maintaining the invisible structure that kept chaos at manageable levels, becoming the architect instead of the brick. It was seductive. It was powerful in ways that being underboss had never been. It was everything the old Marcus would have wanted. Which was exactly why the new Marcus had to refuse it. William, I respect what you built. I understand what you are offering. And I am grateful that you think I am capable, but I cannot accept. Why not? Because I need to figure out who I am without structure someone else designed. Marcus met Sterling's eyes. For 51 years, I have been operating in systems other people created. Marines created structure for me. You created structure for me. Mob life created structure for me. I never built anything from nothing that was truly mine. If I accept your offer, I am just trading one borrowed identity for another. I need to start from zero. Actually, zero. Build something, even if it is small, that is real. That is mine. That I can look at and know I created it honestly. Sterling was quiet for a long moment, then smiled. That is first wise decision I have heard from you. Go, build, fail, succeed, whatever, but build it honestly. And Marcus, when you do, if you do, call me, not for help, just to tell me about it. I would like to know that lesson took. The meeting ended. Marcus drove back to Boston through rain that was turning to early snow, the seasons changing around him the way his life was changing, everything transitioning from what had been to what might be. He had rejected power. He had chosen uncertainty. And somehow, driving through weather that made visibility difficult and roads treacherous, he felt lighter than he had in decades. 6 months passed in increments that felt simultaneously fast and slow, the way time moves when you are rebuilding from ground zero. Marcus sold properties he did not need, liquidated assets that carried memories of borrowed power, converted what remained into capital for something different. He kept the penthouse initially, but it felt wrong, too large, too expensive, too connected to identity he was trying to leave behind. He moved to a smaller apartment in Cambridge, close to the water, but without the view that proclaimed status. The business started small because it had to. Marcus Donovan Security Consulting, legitimate services, corporate security assessment, risk management, private investigation for civil cases, nothing glamorous, nothing connected to organized crime, nothing that would attract attention from FBI or rival families or people who might want to settle old scores. Reaper stayed, which surprised Marcus more than anything else in 6 months of surprises. Thomas Riley could have gone to any family, could have leveraged 20 years of experience into position with real power, could have walked away from Marcus without anyone questioning his loyalty. Instead, he showed up the first day in the new office, a converted storefront in Cambridge that had previously housed a yoga studio, and started setting up security systems. "Boss," I got to ask, "why did I stay?" Reaper's question came 3 months in, while they were installing cameras for a small tech company worried about industrial espionage. "Why did you?" "In 2002, Helmand Province, our convoy got ambushed. I took shrapnel, could not move. You came back for me, could have left, would have been tactically smart, but you came back." Reaper adjusted a camera mount, his hands steady with work he understood. "I do not follow titles, boss. I follow man who came back for me, but I got to say this version of you. I like him better than underboss version. You actually listen now. You actually ask opinions. You are actually present." The work was honest but hard, building reputation from zero when you had history that made people wary. Some potential clients recognized the name, did research, decided they wanted security consultants without organized crime backgrounds. Others saw the experience as asset, figured someone who had survived in that world would understand threats that corporate security experts missed. Slowly, project by project, the business grew. Thursday nights became sacred. Dinner with Jack. No business talk, no discussion of past. Just father and son trying to build relationship that should have been built over 27 years but was starting now, late but genuine. The restaurant was nothing special, Italian place in Queens that served portions too large and prices too reasonable. The kind of place where families celebrated birthdays and anniversaries, where life happened without drama. Jack usually arrived first, a habit from military training that made early arrival automatic. Marcus joined him, and for first hour they talked about nothing important. Weather, sports, news, the conversational equivalent of warming up before exercise. Then, over coffee that neither of them particularly wanted, but ordered anyway to extend the evening, real conversation happened. "Mom is getting remarried," Jack said, the information delivered casually but carrying weight. "Robert Chen, college professor, literature, boring as hell honestly, but he makes her happy." Marcus felt something twist in his chest, jealousy or regret or just recognition that Catherine was moving forward while he was still figuring out how to start. Good. She deserves happy. Real happy, not what I gave her. "You are handling this better than I expected." "Because I finally understand. Catherine leaving was not about me losing something. It was about her gaining herself." Marcus stirred his coffee, watching liquid swirl in patterns that meant nothing. "I cannot be mad about that. I can only be sorry I did not help her sooner, or at all." Jack studied his father across the table, the assessment of someone trained to evaluate threats and opportunities, to read people in situations where misreading cost lives. "Dad, I have been thinking. You're security consulting. You need someone with actual tactical training. Someone who understands threat assessment from military perspective. I would like to work with you, if you will have me." The offer landed with weight Marcus had not expected. "Jack, you sure? This is not glamorous. Background checks, security assessments, risk analysis for companies worried about embezzlement and data theft." "I know, but it is honest. And I want to build something with you, not despite you." Jack leaned forward, his expression serious in a way that made him look older than 27. "For my whole life, we have been in different worlds. You in your business, me in mine. Then I went to war and came back different. And you lost everything and became different. Maybe this is chance to build something together that is actually real." Marcus felt emotion rising, the kind he had spent decades suppressing because underbosses did not show vulnerability. Yeah, I would like that. I would like that a lot. Jack joined the business the following month, bringing skills that Marcus lacked. Combat experience that translated to understanding security from attackers' perspective. Technology expertise developed during deployment. Network of veteran contacts who needed work and brought discipline that corporate world valued. Together, they built something that neither could have created alone. The meeting with Catherine happened by accident, or maybe by design of city that kept throwing people together, whether they wanted contact or not. Marcus was at bookstore in Harvard Square, browsing business section for books on legitimate entrepreneurship, when he saw her examining fiction, her fingers trailing across spines with the careful attention of someone who treated book selection as important decision. He could have left, should have left. Instead, he approached. Catherine. She turned, surprise crossing her face before control reasserted itself. Marcus. Her voice carried neutral politeness, the tone you used with acquaintances whose names you remembered, but whose presence carried no particular meaning. How are you? I am well, and you? They stood in awkward silence, surrounded by shelves holding stories about other people's lives, other people's choices, other people's consequences. Coffee, Catherine suggested, if you have time. They went to a cafe 3 blocks away, ordered drinks they did not particularly want, sat at small table by window overlooking street, where strangers moved through their own dramas, unaware and unconcerned. I hear you started security consulting, Catherine said. How is it going? Slow, honest. Mine, Marcus smiled slightly. I like it. For first time in maybe ever, I like what I do because it is actually what I do, not what someone else built for me. I am glad. Catherine's expression softened. You seem different, lighter. I am. Marcus wrapped his hands around his coffee cup, gathering warmth or courage. Catherine, I owe you apology, real one, not for affair, not for getting caught, but for 22 years of not seeing you. You were brilliant, strategic, powerful, and I treated you like accessory. That was unforgivable, and I am sorry. Marcus, I forgive you. Catherine said it simply, without drama. I forgave you months ago, not because you deserved it, because I needed to let go of anger. But forgiveness does not mean reconciliation. We are done. That chapter closed. I know, I just needed you to know that I finally see what I lost. Not the support, not the infrastructure, not even the marriage, but you, the person, who you actually were. And I am sorry I wasted 22 years not appreciating that. Catherine smiled, sad but genuine. Thank you. That means more than you know. For what it is worth, I think you are going to be okay. Better than okay. Because you are finally building on truth instead of illusion. They talked for another hour, filling in details of lives that had diverged. Catherine's consulting work with legitimate firms, her upcoming marriage to Robert, Marcus's business with Jack, Reaper's continued loyalty. They talked like people who had once been close and were now friendly strangers, connected by history but not by present. When they parted, it was with genuine wishes for each other's happiness, the kind of closure that felt appropriate for relationship that had been real once, but had ended for reasons that neither could change. 1 year after the council meeting that ended his career in organized crime, Marcus Donovan stood at construction site in South Boston, watching workers install security system for community center being rebuilt after years of neglect. The irony was not lost on him. This was same neighborhood where he had run protection rackets, where business owners had paid him money to avoid problems he would have created if they refused. Now he was being paid legitimately to actually protect them. Jack worked alongside him, running cable, mounting cameras, programming systems that would actually deter crime rather than enable it. They worked in comfortable silence, the kind that came from partnership rather than hierarchy, from respect rather than fear. End of day, they sat on curb watching sunset paint the city in shades of orange and purple, the sky indifferent to human drama playing out below. "Dad, you realize the irony, right?" Jack's voice carried amusement rather than judgment. "You used to extort these people. Now you are protecting them." "Yeah, took me 51 years to figure out difference between taking from community and serving it. Better late than never." "What do you think would have happened if you figured it out earlier?" Marcus considered the question seriously. "I do not know. Maybe I would have avoided a lot of pain. Mine, Catherine's, yours. Maybe I would have built something real from beginning. Or maybe I needed to fail completely before I could learn what actually mattered. Some lessons only come through consequence." His phone rang. Unknown number. Marcus answered. "Mr. Donovan, this is David Romano. My grandfather was Frank Romano, Morty family underboss. He died last year, left me inheritance. Territory, operations, crew, I do not want it, I want out. But I do not know how. I heard you got out. I heard you started over. I need help." Marcus met Jack's eyes. His son nodded. This was what the last year had been building toward. Not just rebuilding Marcus, but creating possibility for others to make different choices. "David, I cannot help you get out of mob life. That is between you and your family. But I can tell you what getting out costs. You will lose respect. You will lose money. You will lose identity you thought was yours. People will think you are weak. Coward. Rat, even if you do not testify, your family might disown you. Your friends will disappear. It will be hardest thing you ever do." Marcus paused, remembering his own journey, the year of rebuilding, the loss of everything he thought defined him. "And it will be worth it, because on other side you will be free, actually free, for first time in your life. You will build something that is actually yours, make decisions that are actually your choices. Sleep without wondering if tonight is night someone decides you are problem that needs solving." "How do I start?" "First, talk to legitimate lawyer, not family lawyer, independent one. Second, document everything you know, not to testify but to leverage. Ensure you can walk away safely. Third, build skill outside mob life. Education, trade, something. Fourth, accept that transition will take years, not months. And fifth, find someone who believes in who you can be, not who you were." Marcus gave David his office number. "If you are serious, call me in 6 months. If you have done those steps, I will help you build legitimate security career. But David, if you are not serious, if you go back to life, do not contact me again. I cannot help people who do not want to be helped." The call ended. Marcus sat on curb next to his son, watching the city transition from day to night, lights coming on in windows where families gathered, where ordinary lives played out without drama, where people built things small and real and honest. "Jack, do you think legacy is about what you build or what you help others build?" Jack considered the question. "Maybe it is about what you learn and whether you teach it. You built empire on borrowed power, lost it, learned what real strength means. Now you are helping next person avoid your mistakes. That seems like legacy worth having." "Better late than never," Marcus repeated, the phrase becoming something like mantra. 3 years after his empire collapsed, Marcus Donovan stood in office that was small but paid for, successful but not impressive, honest but not dramatic. The business had grown to 12 employees, all veterans or people rebuilding from their own failures, all given second chances by someone who understood what second chances meant. David Romano had called back after 6 months, had done all 5 steps, now worked as security analyst, learning legitimate trade, building life disconnected from family business that had defined 3 generations. He was not the last. Over 3 years, 7 men had made similar calls. Some followed through. Some did not. But the ones who did built something real, and Marcus helped them, not out of altruism, but out of understanding that helping others escape was part of his own escape. Reaper ran operations, his military experience translating perfectly to corporate security consulting. Jack managed client relations, his calm demeanor and genuine competence building trust that Marcus's history made difficult. Together, they created something that worked, that generated enough revenue to sustain itself, that helped clients without harming anyone. Catherine sent card on Marcus's 54th birthday. Simple message. Proud of what you are building. That meant more than any congratulations on criminal achievements ever had. Sterling called once a year, always same question. How goes the honest work? Always same response from Marcus. Slow, real, mine, always same reply from Sterling. Good, keep going. The afternoon sun slanted through office windows, illuminating dust motes that drifted without purpose or destination, just existing in space between walls that held something real. Marcus reviewed contract for new client, small manufacturing company, worried about industrial espionage, the kind of work that was boring and necessary and completely legitimate. His phone rang, another unknown number. Marcus answered. Mr. Donovan, my name is Anthony Rizzo Jr. My father ran Providence operations. He died last month, left me everything, and I want none of it. Can we talk? Marcus looked at Jack, who was reviewing security footage for different client. His son had built good life. Relationship with woman he met at veteran support group. Apartment he could afford honestly. Future that did not include looking over shoulder or wondering when consequences would arrive. This was legacy, not empire that rose and fell, not power that was borrowed and reclaimed, but possibility that accumulated each time someone chose different path. Yeah, Marcus said into phone, we can talk. Thursday, 2 p.m., my office. Come with list of 5 steps you have taken to prepare for transition. If you have not taken any steps, we will talk about what steps look like. But I will only help people who help themselves. He hung up, returned to contract review. Just another day in life that was small and real and his. Evening arrived with autumn darkness, the seasons cycling through patterns that predated human ambition and would continue after all current dramas resolved into history. Marcus locked office, walked to his car, drove through Cambridge streets where students studied in coffee shops and professionals grabbed dinner before heading home. His apartment waited, modest but comfortable, decorated with furniture he had chosen rather than inherited, books he actually read rather than displayed for status. He poured scotch, 1 glass, reasonable amount, sat by window overlooking street that was not harbor, that did not proclaim kingdom, that just showed ordinary peace of ordinary city where ordinary lives happened. Phone buzzed, text from Jack. Good work today, Dad, dinner Thursday. Marcus smiled, typed response. Absolutely, same place. Same place, Jack confirmed. Marcus sat in gathering darkness, scotch warming in his hand, thinking about borrowed power and real strength, about empires that fell and foundations that held, about men who thought they were architects and discovered they were bricks. He thought about Catherine, happy with Professor who saw her, about Jack building life on honest foundation, about Reaper loyal to person not position, about Sterling, maintaining invisible structure that might actually reduce harm even if it could not eliminate it. He thought about David Romano and Anthony Rizzo Jr. and 5 others who had called asking how to escape, some succeeding, some failing, all trying. That was what remained after everything else was stripped away. The trying, the effort to become better than you were. The willingness to start from zero when starting from zero was only honest option available. Marcus Donovan had been underboss of Crime Family, had controlled millions in revenue and hundreds in crew, had thought himself powerful and learned he was permitted, had lost everything and discovered that everything he lost was borrowed anyway. What remained was smaller, but it was real, and real was worth more than any borrowed empire, any temporary power, any illusion of control. The city glittered outside his window, not his kingdom, just city, full of people making choices, facing consequences, trying to build lives that meant something. Marcus was one of them now, not special, not powerful, not important. Just man who had learned expensive lesson and was trying to pass wisdom forward, helping next person avoid his mistakes, building something honest one small project at a time. Better late than never, he said to empty room. And somewhere in Westchester County, William Sterling raised glass of scotch to daughter who had finally found happiness, to son-in-law who had finally found wisdom, to system that persisted while individuals learned or failed to learn lessons that consequences taught. The game continued, but some players learned to play differently, and that, Sterling thought, was victory of its own kind. Small, real, honest. The only kind that lasted.